For decades, hundreds of dogs have jumped from the same bridge, but nobody knows why. In the Arctic, one man triggered a manhunt in the frozen wilderness and then vanished. But you should stay until the end because the final mystery ruined an entire town overnight. Before we begin, please comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always like seeing how far these stories travel. Chills Podcast. Same voice, different nightmare. Number 6. The frenzy sweeping Overtoun Bridge. Imagine walking your dog on a peaceful bridge and then they suddenly jump over the edge. That's what's happened to more than 600 dogs on a bridge in Scotland. The Overtoun House is a 19th century estate, originally built as a retreat for an industrial entrepreneur, and is now a recognized historical site. Today, it has become a popular visit, especially for local dog owners. Leading to the estate is a bridge spanning over a nearby gorge. Completed in 1895, the bridge continues to grant passage for people exploring the estate's surroundings. But during the 1950s, a series of unexplained events started afflicting dogs who crossed the bridge. According to reports, canines began to act distressed or anxious. Then, without warning, the dogs will leap over the wall and plummet into the ravine below. With a 15-meter/49-foot drop to the bottom, this leaves the dogs seriously injured, or worse. There has been an estimated 600 recorded instances of dogs jumping off the bridge, with around 50 not surviving the fall. According to studies, all the dogs who have jumped are long-nosed breeds, big and small. Furthermore, a majority are said to have jumped from the same particular spot, over the right side ramparts, and despite many studies conducted at the site, nobody has been able to find a conclusive reason for the sudden erratic behavior. A common theory for some time was something was catching the dog's eyes, which sent them leaping towards it. However, this was proven false as the height of the ramparts are too tall for most dogs to see over the edge. Another idea was that they were reacting to sounds emitted from nearby Fastlane Bay, where the British Navy houses its Trident submarines. It was theorized the submarines were producing sounds unheard by human ears, but were clear and loud for that of a dog. This too was disproven through the use of high-end sound equipment, which were unable to pick up any such frequencies. As a result of the abnormal phenomenon, dog owners have begun to stay clear of the bridge, with those who still take their pups keeping them on a leash for safety. The circumstances surrounding Overtoun Bridge have made international headlines, being covered by Vice and even the New York Times. What is common between the articles is the complete lack of explanation for the events. The Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty of Animals decided to launch their own investigation in 2005. While it has been ruled out the dogs were deliberately thrown from the bridge, they still knew it was necessary to track down the source of the behavior. Dr. Sands, who made a documentary regarding the phenomenon, expressed his discomfort at the location. He said, "All your senses are on fire. It's got a strange feeling." Dr. Sands isn't the only one who has expressed a feeling of unease at the bridge. Many have reported general anxiety and discomfort while walking on Overtoun. Unsurprisingly, the house itself is reported to be haunted and has been considered a cause for the dogs jumping. Witnesses have reported seeing a woman dressed in white standing on the bridge, who disappears as they approach. The bridge gained further notoriety in 1994 due to an incident involving a disturbed individual throwing his baby over the bridge. The feelings expressed by visitors could certainly relate to the knowledge of Overtoun's reputation, resulting in disquiet emotions, but even those who are unaware of the reputation have reported the same sensations. In 2010, Dr. Sands returned to Overtoun for another study and concluded the dogs were not intentionally leaping down with the intention of harm. He believes there is a logical cause for the behavior, and has speculated it is related to the wild minks residing in the area. The theory goes that the dogs are becoming overwhelmed by the scent of minks located underneath the bridge, and thus in their confusion and due to instinct, they jump in order to chase the scent. This would explain why the bridge tends to affect mostly long-nosed breeds. While dogs have a strong sense of smell already, those who are long-nosed have a more amplified scent-detecting ability. Unfortunately, this remains simply a theory, and the true cause of the jumpings is unknown. If the cause is the scent of mink, why haven't similar occurrences been reported elsewhere? Minks are rather common across Scotland, so it should be happening across the country rather than being concentrated in a single spot. As of recording this episode, the mystery lives on, with each study proving inconclusive. The people of Dumbarton are left to only speculate why their beloved pets are driven to make such a drastic leap into the abyss. Dog walkers still frequent the location, but many have opted to avoid the bridge altogether. This mystery will be hard to forget, but the cases ahead move from the unknown to something far more deliberate. Number 5. The months of madness along the Rat River. In minus 40-degree temperatures, one man held off an entire police force and vanished into the Arctic, sparking the largest manhunt in Canadian history. It was a chilly July day in 1931, and RCMP Constable Edgar Millen was on patrol in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. During his rounds, he came across a stranger he had never seen before. The area was a popular spot for fur trappers and those hoping to cash in on the potential gold still sealed in the rivers. Edgar engaged in conversation with the man, inquiring about his identity and intentions. The man introduced himself as Albert Johnson, but kept his motives to himself. He maintained a standoffish demeanor and spoke in short sentences. It became evident to Edgar this man was not looking to make friends. In fact, he appeared to want nothing to do with others whatsoever. After this interaction, the man purchased a canoe from locals and set out along the Mackenzie River Delta. Edgar's conversation would be the only known time someone had spoken to him. Aside from the unfriendly attitude, Edgar noticed he had plenty of cash to buy supplies essential to living in the northern wilderness. However, he lacked a trapping license, an odd occurrence as trapping is the primary source of food during the harsh winters. Months went by without any word or sightings of the man, with the initial meeting pushed to the back of Edgar's mind. Then, that December, local Indigenous community members started making complaints to police that their traps were found tampered with. The owners had come to check if there were any catches, but found the traps tripped and hanged from the trees. They gave the description of a man who was known to live in the area, and Edgar recognized these as matching the mysterious man. In one case, someone reported an encounter in the woods with a man who shouted to keep away while threatening them with a rifle, and it was the same mysterious individual. RCMP Constable Alfred King and Special Constable Joe Bernard decided to make the trek to the mystery man's cabin, approximately 100 kilometers from the detachment. When they arrived, they noted smoke was rising from the chimney, indicating he was there. They knocked on the door and attempted to speak with him, but he made no response. Alfred peered through one of the cabin windows, but the man inside placed a cloth sack over it, obstructing the view. After some time, without success, the officers decided to return to the detachment and obtain a search warrant. 5 days later, Alfred, Joe, and 2 other officers returned to the cabin. Alfred knocked on the door and called out to the man. Once again, there was no reply. Alfred made several more attempts to speak with him through the door, but he remained silent. At this time, Alfred decided they should enforce the search warrant and started kicking the door. Immediately, a gunshot echoed from within the cabin, and Alfred collapsed into the snow. Officers opened fire on the cabin, while one grabbed Alfred and dragged him back to the sled. Knowing they were unfit to impose a siege, and with Alfred gravely wounded, the officers made the trek back to the detachment for reinforcements. Alfred was taken back to Aklavik, where he was able to make a recovery. Meanwhile, RCMP recruited a posse of 9 men, along with 42 sled dogs, rifles, ammunition, and even 20 pounds worth of dynamite. When the posse arrived at the cabin, they set up a perimeter, then began thawing the dynamite in their coats. Shots were soon exchanged, and a full-on firefight began. Officers noted the man was aiming his rifle through several holes around the cabin. He appeared to be heavily armed and a good shooter, nearly hitting several officers during the 15-hour standoff. Running out of options, and with the weather beginning to worsen, officers decided to use the remaining dynamite to blow up the cabin. The charge was lit. A man made a run towards the cabin, and then threw the bundle as hard as he could. The blast rippled through the walls and collapsed the roof. Then there was silence. The gunfire stopped, but officers were still in cover. Eventually, they decided to make a rush at the cabin. As soon as the officers stood up, they once again came under fire. Feeling defeated and with no other ideas, the posse returned to their sleds and made the journey back to Aklavik. As they left, they heard an eerie sound coming from the ruins. Inside, the man was laughing loudly, somehow still alive despite the devastation to his home. As the posse arrived back at the detachment and told about what happened, news was spread nationally via the radio, and a full-scale manhunt was dispatched to apprehend the man. Unfortunately for authorities, the search was delayed due to blizzard conditions and frigid temperatures reaching -40 degrees. By the time they set out and returned to the cabin, the mystery man was long gone. While investigating the remains of the cabin, officers discovered the man had essentially made a trench in the interior, providing excellent cover during the shootouts. Now officers were faced with the dilemma of finding a needle in a haystack. The search party enlisted the help of local indigenous men who were experts at tracking and had better knowledge of the area to help in the search. Eventually, a group led by Edgar was able to catch up with the man. Instead of surrendering, he once again responded with gunfire. During the exchange, Edgar was struck through the heart and collapsed to the ground. This once again forced the RCMP to retreat. Edgar, the only individual known to have spoken with the man, was now the man's first fatal victim. Through studying the route the man was taking, it was determined he was making a break for the Yukon through the Richardson Mountains. RCMP officers were dispatched to block off the two passes through the mountains, hoping to stop him once and for all. To their shock, the man instead scaled the peaks and disappeared into the Yukon. He was quickly making a legend for himself, and his ability to seemingly slip through lines unnoticed baffled investigators. Running out of options, the RCMP hired Wilfred Wap May, a pilot for Canadian Airways. He was a veteran of the First World War, having obtained the status of ace during his tenure. Wap used a monoplane with snow skis attached to the bottom, meaning he could easily land in the snow, even in isolated areas. Enlisting Wap's aid proved to be a major turning point in the search. During a flyover on February 14, 1932, Wap spotted footprints along the ice of the Eagle River. He discovered these tracks were a series of caribou tracks, but something about them seemed off. Upon closer inspection, he was surprised to see human footprints on top of the already made hoof prints. The man had been following caribou packs as a means to conceal his movements. Wap made this determination after spotting human footprints leading away from the river in areas where the man was making camp. Wap radioed his discovery to the RCMP, and a group was immediately dispatched to intercept the man. As the posse rounded a turn in the river, they spotted him walking only a few hundred yards in front of them. Not taking any chances, the team opened fire, forcing him to try and run for cover. A bullet passed through him and he fell into the snow. Despite his injury, he remained defiant and once again engaged RCMP in a shootout. Alfred, who was part of the posse, was once again struck by the man's gunfire and wounded, but would survive the ordeal. Eventually, another bullet hit the man in the lower body and he stopped firing. The posse slowly approached him, ready to strike in case this was another trick. One officer turned him onto his back, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The mad trapper's rampage was finally done. Officers brought the man's body back to a nearby settlement and hoisted it up to do an examination. As he fell for the last time, the cold temperatures quickly froze the man's body. In what was probably his last expression, he now had a permanent, grimaced look on his face, which some have stated appeared to be him smirking in amusement or an expression of pain. He had over $2,000 in both Canadian and American currency, some small animal corpses, pills, and a jar of teeth with gold fillings. After the investigation, he was buried in a grave back in Aklavik. While his reign of terror was over and the case closed, one key aspect continues to elude historians. The man's life prior to arriving in the Northwest Territories is undocumented, leaving his place of birth, occupation, and even his age as unknown. When Edgar spoke with the man originally, he stated he had what he believed to be a Scandinavian accent, his motives for relocating to the far north, and even whether or not he was actually the one tampering with the traps is still unclear. There have been several investigations into determining his true identity. What is universally agreed upon is the name Albert Johnson was a pseudonym in order to conceal who he really was. There have been several theories as to who the Mad Trapper was before his time in the North. Some have even speculated he was a former Depression-era outlaw, akin to the likes of Bonnie and Clyde or John Dillinger. In 2007, a team of forensics experts and historians unearthed the grave and conducted a thorough examination of his body. They also compared DNA samples with those of claimed family members. None of those who participated were found to be related to the Mad Trapper. His trek across the frozen vasts of northern Canada remains the largest manhunt in Canadian history. A further analysis of his DNA linked his ancestry to Sweden, but as of 2026, his true identity remains a complete mystery. Number 4. His 21 faces watched the world burn. A man claimed he laced children's candy with poison, and millions believed him. Itogawa Ranpo is a famed Japanese novelist best known for his mystery novels. His stories were centered around fictional detective Kogoro Akechi, a Sherlock Holmes-like character from whom Ranpo took inspiration. During the course of the novels, he frequently clashes with an antagonist known as the Fiend with 20 Faces. Little did anyone know the villain would provide inspiration for one of Japan's most notorious series of events. Glico is a Japanese company best known for their wildly popular Pocky candies. These treats have been distributed worldwide as a delicious snack. On March 18, 1984, the Glico company would make headlines for a completely different reason. Two men dressed in masks broke into the home of the company president. Ashohi saw Ezeki, tying him and his family up, then throwing Ezeki into the trunk of a car. Soon after, the perpetrators demanded a ransom of 1 billion yen, roughly $9 million in today's currency, and 220 pounds of gold bullion. Luckily, before any such demands could be met, Ezeki was able to escape his confinement. Unfortunately, this was not the end of the story. Days after Ezeki escaped, 6 cars parked at the Glico factory caught fire and were destroyed, with police determining it to be an act of arson. Then came the letters, sent to the police and local newspapers for publication. In them, the perpetrators insulted the police and left clues to identify them, such as the color of their car. They then threatened to kidnap the head of the prefectural police. Signed at the bottom of the letter was the monster with 21 faces. This caused concern among the Japanese populace, and soon the terror would be made real. A second letter soon arrived, claiming the monster had laced Glico candies with cyanide. Out of concern for public safety, all Glico candies were recalled from the shelves. As a result, Glico lost $130 million in revenue. Even stranger, none of the candies tested positive for poison. More letters soon arrived to various institutions, with claims the monster with 21 faces was a gang which included children. It also stated they had grown bored with targeting Glico, and it was initially believed their reign of fear was over. These hopes were quickly dashed when another company, Maranaga, received their own letter demanding money or face the consequences. Maranaga ignored the demand, which proved to be a major mistake. Within days, the monster claimed it had, quote, added a special flavor, end quote. While believing it to be another false claim, police still investigated the threat, and sure enough, they found boxes of Morinaga candies with a note labeled "Danger contains poison," again signed by the monster. Sure enough, large traces of poisons were found in the package's contents. A major investigation was established to find the monster with 21 faces. Ezeki, despite having spent 3 days with the individuals, was unable to provide any details regarding their identities, as they had been careful to conceal their faces and voices. Then came a break police were looking for. Security footage from a local store filmed an unknown man dressed in a suit and tie browsing through the shelves. Suddenly, he took several Glico candies from his pocket and placed them on display before casually leaving. Based on the footage, police released a composite sketch of who the individual might look like, as much of his face was obscured due to where he was facing. Known as the videotaped man, it is widely speculated this individual is the mastermind behind the monster with 21 faces. However, no one ever came forward with information, and the case soon turned cold. As a result of the mounting stress and scrutiny over failure to identify any suspects, Shiga Police Chief Shoji Yamamoto took his own life a year later. Following this, the monster with 21 faces appeared to have a change of heart. In a final letter, he stated the group, quote, decided to forget about torturing food-making companies, ending by saying any further attempts of blackmail would be a copycat. They also offered their condolences for the fallen police chief. Sure enough, the threatening letters ceased altogether. Police investigated over 120,000 suspects, looked into possible organized crime connections, and even the possibility of North Korean infiltrators. As of 2026, the monster with 21 faces has never been identified, despite around 1 million officers working on the case over the nearly 20 years of investigation. With the limitation for the poisonings running out 5 years later, this means even if someone was publicly identified, no charges could be brought against them. In 1995, the statute of limitations expired regarding Ezeki's kidnapping. Aside from the mystery surrounding the identity, the even bigger question was what was the motive behind their actions? Several theories have been floated around, including the actions of disgruntled former employees to anarchists and even Yakuza involvement, but this mystery has never been solved. If that story unsettled you, stay with me, we're not finished yet. Number 3, Cortney Lake. An ex-boyfriend broke a no-contact order 33 times in one day. Weeks later, she was never seen again. Cortney Lake was a young woman from St. Lawrence, on the southern tip of the Burin Peninsula. She was described as independent and close with her family. During her late teens, she fell in love with a man named Jason, and the two had a son together. While the relationship didn't work out, the pair continued to co-parent their child while maintaining a cordial friendship with one another. In 2013, she became the first single mother to be accepted into the Miss Newfoundland and Labrador pageant. It seemed like her life was finally turning around, but everything fell apart when she met Philip Smith. This new relationship is described as toxic and abusive, with Philip constantly manipulating and even physically assaulting her. The last straw came on April 17, 2017. Police received a call from Cortney's mother, Lisa, after Cortney was injured at Philip's hands. According to the report, Cortney and Philip were in a pickup truck when a verbal argument broke out, and Cortney attempted to exit the vehicle. Philip grabbed her and punched her twice, striking her stomach and arm. As a result of this latest incident, Cortney ended the relationship, but Philip refused to let go. On several occasions, he sent explicit photos to her through text, which she reported to the authorities. On May 5th, Lisa was contacted by Philip via telephone, stating he intended to end his life. Lisa phoned Philip's sister, who in turn phoned police, stating she was deeply concerned for his well-being. Using a phone signal, a Royal Newfoundland Constabulary officer located the man near the St. John's Airport, but Philip fled before any contact could be made. A search managed to locate him later the same day, and Philip was taken to a healthcare facility where he remained for 4 days. At this point, Cortney obtained what is known as a police bond, which legally prevented Philip from making any form of contact with her. This did not deter him though, and at one point he attempted to speak with her 33 times in one day. 2 days later, on June 7th, Philip pleaded guilty to several charges, including the distribution of illicit images without the consent of the person depicted. Instead of jail time, he was given probation, with an even stricter no-contact order than previously implemented. His defense attorney successfully argued to have a number of charges dropped on the basis Philip was undergoing a crisis. While the trial was underway, Cortney continued on with her life. She met with Jason for their son's weekly swimming lesson. She then spent some time with her family before returning to her home in Mount Pearl. This was the last time she was ever seen. After not hearing from Cortney, Lisa called police to report her missing. Initially, police spoke with Jason, but he was quickly cleared of any wrongdoing. Then, focus shifted to Philip. Finding no witnesses amongst Philip's neighbors, investigators began checking CCTV footage of Philip's home, as well as Cortney's. A break came into the case when a nearby resident presented dashcam footage showing Cortney entering a black pickup truck just before 8 a.m. on June 7th. The vehicle matched the one owned by Philip, and he was confirmed as the primary suspect. Police conducted a surveillance of his home and even gained a search warrant for his home and truck. Several items were removed for analysis, but it is unknown if they provided any evidence relating to Cortney's disappearance. Furthermore, Philip's truck came up clean. and it was returned to him shortly after. Philip confessed to investigators he had picked up Cortney that day and took her back to his home, but denied causing harm to her. According to him, something backed up by text messages, Philip agreed to pick up Cortney so she could retrieve her Christmas ornaments from Philip's home. This resulted in Philip once again being charged with breaking his conditions, for which he pleaded guilty and was given jail time. Cortney's family found the idea she would willingly go with him to be odd. Weeks before she disappeared, Cortney and Lisa went to Philip's home to retrieve belongings, only to find them burning on Philip's front lawn. It's likely Philip gave false promises this would be the last time he would see her, which was true, albeit with possibly a more twisted intention in mind. The focus around Philip, combined with his criminal behavior, eventually led to him being dismissed from the armed forces that autumn. This action would further spiral his behavior out of control. On Halloween, Philip's family notified authorities he had once again stated his intention to end his own life. When police arrived at his home, he was gone. At 3 a.m. the following morning, Philip's body was found near his family's cabin. With this, the biggest chance of finding Cortney was lost. While the circumstances surrounding Cortney's disappearance remain a mystery, many believed Philip was involved. Unfortunately, without knowing where she is, there would be no closure for those who love her. Jason continues to raise his son and maintains close contact with Cortney's family. Jason has also become the target of an unknown individual. In March 2022, police and fire responded to Jason's home after his 2 vehicles became engulfed in flames. Following an investigation, the fires were determined to be set deliberately by an unknown arsonist. Jason believes he was targeted by someone who suspects he was the true perpetrator of Cortney's disappearance. However, there is literally no evidence suggesting he had any part in the crime whatsoever, and Jason having confirmed alibis for his whereabouts at the time of Cortney's disappearance. As of 2026, the case remains under investigation by the RNC. If you or anyone you know has any information regarding her disappearance or any other missing persons in Newfoundland, you can contact the RNC directly at 1-709-729-8000 or by calling Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Number 2. The Tear-Soaked Road, where pain and sorrow thrives. Over 80 people have vanished along this one stretch of highway. Since 1969, British Columbia Highway 16 has seen a large number of disappearances and deaths under suspicious circumstances. As of 2026, over 80 people have either vanished or fallen victim to foul play. Most of the victims were Indigenous women who were hitchhiking along that road. Even more heartbreaking is how many were under the age of 20 when they vanished or died. What could be considered case zero, at least by officials, is Gloria Levine Moody of Bella Coola Reserve. She was 27 years old, a mother of 2 kids, and described as caring with a joyous personality. It was October 25th, 1969, and Gloria was on a weekend trip with her family. She and her brother Dave took the night to conduct a bar hop in Williams Lake. The night went well, with the siblings hitting up several hot spots in the town. Following drinks at the Ranch Hotel, the two decided to call it a night and made the walk back to the rest of the family. As Dave was taking in the night air, he turned to speak with Gloria, but was surprised to see she wasn't behind him. In fact, she was nowhere to be seen. Dave swore she was right behind him, but upon discovering she was gone, he returned to his family and reported what happened. At that time, it wasn't clear if anything malicious had happened, but the next day, the news we would all dread reached the Moody family. During the following morning, 2 hunters were scouting animal tracks along a cattle trail 10 kilometers west of Williams Lake. Instead, they discovered the remains of Gloria dumped in a bush. She was stripped of her clothing and had many signs of blunt force trauma over her body. She was considered the first victim of the Highway of Tears by investigators, and more tragically, the first to go unsolved. Since Gloria's passing, the number of unsolved cases is disputed, but it ranges between 20 to 50 according to various sources, with some organizations believing the true number to be much higher. The year 1990 proved to have a high number of cases related to the Highway of Tears, totaling 6 victims, including an infant not even a year old. The baby, named Kimberly Dumais, perished in a house fire investigators found to be deliberately set. Kimberly's grandmother, Helga, and her 2 aunts, Sherry and Pauline, also perished in the flames. 4 months prior, the house had caught fire due to arson, leading police to believe the family was targeted. After years without leads, the Dumais family received an anonymous letter claiming to be from the man responsible for the attack. Unfortunately, the letter had been cleaned of physical evidence, and no suspects have been named as of recording this episode. There's not even safety in numbers while traveling along the highway. In 1989, Ronald and Doreen Jack, both 26 years old, were on their way from Prince George to a logging camp with their 2 children, Russell, age 9, and Ryan, age 4. The night before, Ronald was approached by an unknown man at a bar and engaged in conversation. Ronald was an unemployed woodcutter, and the unidentified male offered him a job at a logging camp nearby. Believing this to be a stroke of good luck, Ronald agreed, and the next day, he and his family were last seen entering a pickup truck driven by an unknown person. This would be the last time any of the Jack family was seen alive. After several months of receiving no word, Ronald's mother filed a missing persons report, and the Prince George RCMP opened an investigation. The only lead police got in their search was when an anonymous caller contacted the nearby Vanderhoof detachment, claiming the Jack family were buried beneath a ranch somewhere in BC. The person provided no other details, nor any specifics about the actual location before hanging up. Investigators traced the call to a home in Stony Creek, but when they questioned the residents, they denied making the call, stating they hosted a house party the same night the call was made. As recently as August 2019, a forensics team used a ground-penetrating radar to search a property on the Sycas First Nations, south of Vanderhoof. Unfortunately, nothing was seen beneath the ground, and the case remains open to this day. Despite the establishment of a joint police investigation regarding the crimes on Highway 16, people have continued to fall victim to the dark cloud to this day. Chelsea Amanda Kwa, a 29-year-old from Syca First Nation, had just moved back to her home in October 2023. Chelsea worked at a mill in Houston, British Columbia, and was known as highly educated, independent, and hardworking. On October 11th, Chelsea was visiting her father when she stepped outside around 2 a.m. Her father assumed she went for a smoke, but grew concerned when she was gone for some time. When he went to check on her, she was gone, with no indication of where she might be. For her to suddenly leave without informing family of her whereabouts was highly unusual, and her father reported her missing shortly after. On November 6, police announced they had found the remains of Chelsea Kwa in the woods off Highway 16, within the limits of the Sycas First Nation. Since the discovery, police have not revealed any updates regarding the case. Attempts to find the missing persons have proven difficult for a variety of reasons. Northern BC contains around 55 million hectares of forest, of which very little has actually been touched by human feet. Furthermore, it cannot be emphasized enough how remote this stretch of highway is. It doesn't help that cell phone reception is low due to the surrounding Rocky Mountains. There has been an idea the Highway of Tears crimes have been perpetrated by a single person or group, though this has been dispelled many times. Primarily, suspects have been identified and convicted in relation to cases associated with the road. Furthermore, the idea that someone could continue to operate for over half a century is impossible. They would have had to start young and continue to operate in their old age. Considering the already notorious reputation Highway 16 has, it is not unreasonable to believe this attracts persons to the area as a way to enact their malicious intent. Due to the high number of unsolved cold cases, it is also entirely possible the area is chosen for this reason. It could be seen as a morbid safe haven for those looking to conduct and get away with their crimes. It's a horrible thought based solely on speculation, so this shouldn't be taken as a confirmed fact. What is known, though, is Highway 16 is still unable to shed its ill-famed reputation. Anyone with information regarding any of the unsolved cases related to the Highway of Tears, or wishing to report instances of police inactivity, can contact British Columbia's Independent Investigations Office at 1-855-446-8477 or by visiting their website at iiobc.ca. Number 1. Taken away to be forgotten by the world. One morning in this town, 21 men were dragged from their homes, and no one has seen them since. Imagine one day, you awake in your town to find dozens of your neighbors were suddenly gone. People you used to say hello to in passing, had friendly conversations with at your door, even participated in public activities with, seemingly vanished into thin air. Worse yet, Years have gone by, and not a word of their whereabouts have reached you or anyone else. They are simply gone, possibly never to return. While it resembles a plot in a mystery novel or television series, this is the exact scenario which occurred in a southern Mexican town in 2021. Pantalo is a municipality of Mexico's Chiapas state with around 20,500 residents. The state has a rather unique history for the country due to the conflict between the Mexican government, followers of the Zapatista movement, an organization known as the EZLN rebelled during the 1990s and managed to establish an autonomous socialist society in Chiapas. The group managed for some time to fend off attacks by the Mexican cartels and Mexican government for over 2 decades, operating as a stateless society based on the ideology of revolutionary Emiliano Zapata Salazar. Pantalo lies close to where the autonomy existed and was not spared from the cartels or government in their attempts to assert their control. Furthermore, various so-called vigilante groups emerged, working with the government or the cartels, depending on the circumstances. On July 26, 2021, a group calling themselves El Machete Self-Defense Group entered the town, their faces covered and armed with weapons. They stated their intention was to take several suspected criminals into custody and rounded up 21 men from their town. The men had their hands bound and their homes set on fire. Before they were taken away from the village, El Machete alleged these men were involved in criminal activity for a group known as Herreras. Much to the shock of witnesses, the president of the municipal council, Pedro Cortez Lopez, was present and on the side of El Machete, as well as members of the Mexican Army and National Guard, who did not intervene and appeared to be complicit in the kidnappings. After the group left, their prisoners in tow, the 21 victims have not been seen or heard from again. Residents met with the State Human Rights Commission in December the same year to inquire about the status of the investigation or any knowledge of their loved ones' well-being. While being assured an investigation was underway, the people of Pantalo have received no further updates from authorities. To this day, the families of those who disappeared have received threats via phone by the El Machete militia. Any attempts to contact the authorities on where the investigation is at have led to a dead end. The people of Pantalo have accused the government of intentionally delaying any response, and many believe the government itself, or at least members of the government, are directly involved in the kidnappings. Aside from the missing men still unaccounted for, the true reason behind their taking remains a mystery. 5 years on, families are still left without answers, with hope of seeing their loved ones again dwindling with each passing day. Despite the efforts of El Machete to conceal their identities, several witnesses have stated they know the names of the perpetrators. Video also exists of the kidnappings, showing the chaotic and harsh methods used in conducting such a massive operation. Despite announcing themselves as El Machete during the kidnappings, the group now denies they were involved in any way. As for the central government in Mexico, officials have set up aerial and ground searches of the surrounding areas, but have come up with no leads as to where the missing men are located. Unfortunately, it appears the fate of the 21 men will never be fully solved. Worse yet, there is now very little chance any of them are still alive. The fact 24 men could be swept up and forced from their homes by a large number of militia members, viewed by hundreds of witnesses, yet no new leads in the case in 5 years, is no doubt highly suspicious. Here is something most people ignore. Public Wi-Fi at coffee shops, airports, and hotels is convenient, but it is not always secure. Every time you connect, your data can be exposed. That's why I use Proton VPN. It encrypts your connection and hides your IP address, so what you do online stays private. It is based in Switzerland with strong privacy laws and a strict no-log policy. If you want to protect your connection, go to protonvpn.com/chills. Using my link helps support the podcast. Before we wrap up, something most people here do not know, I do not just tell stories, I also make music. If you are curious to hear that side of me, my album Sawiskara is streaming everywhere now. The link is in the description. This has been the Chills Podcast, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to leave a rating, and also follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces, X at YT_chills, and TikTok at chills. This podcast was made in collaboration with Jonah and Karina. Until next time, bye bye.